My stepdad took my mom and his kids on a secret vacation without telling me. They just left me home alone. So, I packed my things and moved out, and what happened after that changed everything. They ignored me, but later, they regretted it. Hi, Reddit. It all started with an Instagram post. I was scrolling on a quiet Saturday morning, half awake and sipping cold coffee, when I saw it. A picture of my mom, stepdad Greg, and his 2 kids at a tropical resort. The caption said, "Family time is everything." I stared at it in shock. They were in Bali. I was freezing in Michigan, stuck in a house where the heater hadn't worked for 2 days. No note, no text, no call. They had just left the country without saying a word to me. I wasn't just sad, I was in disbelief. I kept rereading the post, looking at their happy faces. My mom wore the sundress I gave her for her birthday. Greg had his arm around his daughter Melissa. His son Tyler was doing a backflip into the pool. I wasn't in a single photo. I hadn't even known they were going. I'm not hard to live with. I don't start fights. I pay for my own groceries. I help with chores and even take care of my little sister's dog when no one else does. A few months ago, I even helped plan a family vacation, but they canceled it, saying Greg had a work emergency. Now I know the truth, they just didn't want me there. I texted my mom. Nothing. I called, 2 rings, then voicemail. It wasn't just being left behind. It was feeling like I didn't even exist to them anymore. I moved in with Greg and my mom when I was 14, after my dad passed away in a car accident. Greg had 2 kids from a previous marriage, and while I always tried to fit in, it never really worked. Greg saw me as baggage. I wasn't his kid, so I wasn't his responsibility. At first, my mom tried to balance everything, but over the years she slowly started leaning more into Greg's world. Their family vacations became their thing. Their dinner outings never included me, unless I happened to be home. Even holidays started feeling like I was a guest at best. But this was the final slap in the face. That night, I packed up everything I could. I didn't leave a note, a message, or anything. If they could disappear without warning, so could I. I moved into my best friend Isla's spare room. She and her fiancé were kind enough to take me in while I figured things out. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm, safe, and, most importantly, it wasn't filled with people who pretended I didn't exist. A few days passed before I heard from anyone. My mom finally texted, "Why didn't you tell me you were leaving? I came home and your stuff was gone." I stared at that message, dumbfounded. That was it? No explanation, just that. I replied with a photo of the Bali post. She didn't respond. For the next few weeks, I tried to focus on myself. I enrolled in a few art classes I'd been putting off. I picked up more hours at the bookstore where I worked. I even started saving for my own place. Isla became like the sister I never had. She helped me rediscover the version of me I had buried for years, the one that used to laugh easily, dance in the kitchen, and dream about opening her own design studio someday. But the silence from my mom still haunted me. One evening, I got a call from my aunt, my dad's sister, who lived a few towns away. We hadn't spoken much in recent years, mostly because my mom and Greg subtly discouraged it, but she had seen a few of my Instagram posts and reached out. She asked me how I was doing, and I broke. I told her everything. She wasn't surprised. Apparently, my mom had been slowly drifting from my dad's side of the family ever since she married Greg. My aunt said she always suspected Greg didn't want me around, that he wanted a clean slate with his own kids and didn't care how I fit in. Then she said something I didn't expect. "If you ever want to come live here and reset, my doors are open." I considered it for a few days, but I was finally building something on my own. I didn't want to start over again, running away from another rejection. Still, her support meant more than she could ever know. Weeks turned into months. Then something unexpected happened. Greg's company collapsed. Apparently, some shady financial decisions he made came to light and half the staff quit. My mom, who had given up her part-time teaching job to help with his business, was suddenly unemployed, too. And then, like a ghost from the past, she showed up. I came home from work one night to find her sitting in Isla's living room. She looked thinner, more tired, less put together than I'd ever seen her. She said she wanted to talk, that she owed me an explanation. I didn't say anything at first. I just sat across from her and waited. She started crying. She said she was sorry, that she got caught up in Greg's world and didn't realize how much she was hurting me, that she thought I was strong enough to handle being left out because I never complained, that she let him convince her it was easier to avoid conflict than to stand up for me. Then she said something that really made me go cold. "He said you were always distant anyway, that you preferred your own company." That we'd be doing you a favor if we just left you alone. I swallowed hard. So that's what they told themselves to sleep at night. I asked her why she was here now. She said everything was falling apart. Greg had been accused of fraud, his kids had gone back to live with their mother, and she was realizing too late that she'd built a life around someone who didn't care about her or the people she loved. I wanted to feel pity, I wanted to believe she had changed, but all I felt was numb. She asked if I would consider coming home, maybe we could fix things. That she needed me. I looked at her and said calmly, "You didn't need me when you boarded that plane to Bali." I told her I wasn't angry anymore, I was just done. I had finally found peace, and I wasn't going to sacrifice that to be someone's afterthought again. She left in tears. That night, I realized something profound. For years, I was clinging to the idea of a mother who would fight for me, who would choose me, who would protect me the way moms are supposed to. But sometimes people don't become who we need them to be, and that's not our fault. I didn't go back. I didn't reach out again. I kept moving forward for the first time on my own terms. But what happened next? Well, it changed everything. After that night, things went quiet, too quiet. I thought that would be the end of it, my mother realizing I was serious, leaving me to my life. But instead, things spiraled faster than I ever expected. A week after she showed up at Isla's place, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Greg. At first, I almost didn't answer, but something in me wanted to hear what he had to say, maybe to finally confront him, maybe just to see how low he had fallen. He started off smug. He said things like, "I hear you're doing well on your own now, and I always knew you'd survive. You're a tough one." Then he tried to pivot. He told me my mom wasn't doing well, that she was depressed, that she felt abandoned, that maybe I owed it to her to at least try to be there now that their lives had flipped upside down. I was stunned by the audacity. "You mean like how she was there for me when you all went to Bali without a word?" There was silence. Then he scoffed and said, "You're being dramatic. You were 23, not a child. We thought you'd be fine." That broke me. The way he kept minimizing it, reducing years of emotional neglect to one vacation. I hung up mid-sentence. It didn't stop there. My mom began texting regularly, apologies, memories, even photos of us from when I was little. She tried everything to reignite some spark of connection, but I didn't trust it. It all felt too convenient, too reactive. She was reaching out now because she had no one left, not because she suddenly remembered she had a daughter. Meanwhile, I was building something new. I got promoted at the bookstore, started managing the local events calendar, and even hosted my first community poetry night. I submitted a few of my designs to a local art market, and to my surprise, 2 were accepted for the summer exhibit. Life was still hard, but it finally felt like mine. Then came the letter. It arrived on a rainy Wednesday afternoon. No return address, just my name in my mother's handwriting. I sat on the porch, watching the gray sky as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten note, raw and emotional in a way texts had never been. She wrote about how losing my dad broke her in ways she never admitted, how Greg filled a void, but she let him take control of too much, how she thought following him meant safety and structure, but it cost her a relationship with me. She said she didn't expect forgiveness, just wanted me to know that she knew she failed. She ended it with, "If you ever find it in your heart to try again, I'll be here, but I understand if you never do." That letter rattled me. For the first time, I saw not just a woman who betrayed me, but a deeply flawed, grieving human who made horrible choices and was now living with their weight. But I also saw something else, how far I had come without her. Still, the part of me that always wanted my mother's love cracked a little, so I decided to visit, not for reconciliation, but for closure. She was living in a small apartment now, far from the gated suburban house they used to boast about. Greg was gone, apparently. He fled the state when the investigation ramped up. The kids were with their mother permanently. She opened the door like she'd seen a ghost. I stepped in, looked around the modest living room, and sat down across from her. We talked for hours. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't angry. It was honest. I told her how invisible I had felt for years, how she slowly slipped away piece by piece until I was just furniture in my own life. I didn't hold back, and she didn't deny any of it. She admitted it. She cried quietly but didn't try to guilt me. She didn't beg. She said she just wanted to finally tell me the truth, that she'd spent years building a fake version of happiness and ignored all the red flags because it was easier to pretend things were fine, and that her biggest regret wasn't losing Greg's house or money, it was losing me. I told her I appreciated the apology, but I wasn't sure where that left us. She nodded and said she understood. As I left, she gave me the one thing I'd never received before from her, space to decide on my terms. That evening, I walked through my neighborhood and felt something I hadn't felt in years, weightless. Not because things were perfect, but because I was no longer waiting for someone to pick me. I had picked myself. Months passed. I never moved back in, but I started sending her birthday cards, then a Christmas call, then coffee every other month. Not because I needed her, but because I had healed enough to forgive without returning to the fire. Now, a year later, I live in a tiny one-bedroom studio, walls covered in my art. I freelance as a designer for small businesses. And last month I opened my own Etsy shop. Isla is still my closest friend and biggest cheerleader. As for Greg, last I heard he was facing trial in another state. His kids want nothing to do with him either. My mother is trying on her own this time. She's teaching again, attending therapy, and slowly piecing together a life that no longer depends on a man to validate it. We're not best friends. We're not what we used to be, but we're something real now, and sometimes that's enough. Because I realized something, being left out of their family vacation was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to leave a place where I was never truly wanted and step into the life I was meant to create, one where I wasn't invisible, one where I didn't have to wait for someone else to see me. I see me now, and I'm not going back.